Is there a role that youth sports can play in better developing leadership skills and coaching not only the player development but the parents? Because I think that is definitely a big issue with parents getting over their skis around what the potential is.
I'm an old guy and I've been around youth sports since I was a youth. So that's, I'm 60, almost 68. So I've been around youth sports for 63 years or so. I was 5 years old when I was first in Little League. And I've seen a little bit of a shift as to what people are looking for when they enter youth sports. I always felt that it was fun. It was the camaraderie. It was being with people. Didn't know it, but it was probably the lessons you learned by striking out to lose the World Series in Little League when I was 9. The lesson I learned from that I didn't ever want to be in that position again. I was going to get a hit next time.
Right.
And so
get that tee out.
Yeah, those were all the lessons you learned. The evolution that I've seen over these 5+ decades is that it seems like some of the focus is where am I batting in the order? Am I going to get a trophy? Am I going to make the travel team? Am I going to get a scholarship? Am I going to make the major leagues? We didn't think anything about the major leagues. We loved the Cleveland Indians. I grew up in Cleveland, but there was never a time where I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to be a Cleveland Indian. That wasn't, and no one was telling me, hey, you ought to think about being a Cleveland Indian. I was just trying to take from youth sports what it had to offer. Our coaches, I know Mr. James and Mr. Baird, ironically, one was a plumber and one had a heating and cooling store. They weren't out there. Neither of them, wanted their kid to. In fact, Mr. Baird's son didn't even have any kids. Mr. James had a couple kids, but they were just like the rest of us. They might have batted 7th or whatever, and they didn't get any special. No, Mr. James wasn't living his life through his kids,
right?
Which you see a little bit,
mm-hmm.
And so I think the values of group activity. I don't care if it's the marching band, the orchestra, the clubs of any kind, youth sports. If we veer off of what the values gained from them are and onto what rewards you can get from them from a material standpoint, I think we've gone down the wrong path. And right now, unfortunately, what you're seeing in youth sports is you see youth sports activity go until about age 13 and then it crashes. Because you know what? We didn't go and have travel teams and play for 6 more weeks, or we didn't get private lessons coaches or go in batting cages in the winter, and I think we've burned out our kids a little bit, and all of a sudden it's like they're at age 13. They haven't maybe evolved as the next Francisco Lindor.
Right.
And they're like,
there's not a love for the game.
No.
Right?
They were kind of, so do I think youth sports has evolved into maybe being less impactful as it maybe once was? Maybe. I have an old mentor who was a retired English professor from Georgia Southern, Dr. Spurgeon, and he's a kind of a Greek mythologist, Shakespeare guy, and he says, there's in Shakespeare's 71st sonnet, it talks about consumed by that which nourished us. Well, Little League nourished us. Today we've gotten consumed by it. And he said that's exactly what was happening in the Shakespearean times. That's what he was talking about. The good life, which they had every once in a while, it kind of nourished them, gave them a little good taste. It consumed them. He kind of parallels the beginning of ESPN with all of a sudden, when I was growing up, the Buckeyes were only on once a year. By rule, you could be on 5 times every 2 years, including your bowl game. That was just the way it was. Well, in the early 80s, they deregulated TV.
Right.
You could be on TV all you want. ESPN had sports 24 hours a day. We kind of got latched to it. Even my kids, who were little, would watch Sports Center all the time. And so everything became highlights. Nothing about the journey, just the highlights. And did we got consumed by that which nourished us, that which gave us value. And so Doc Spurgeon may be right, like any other evolution of things. And I really think we could really get value if we took a good look at youth sports or youth activities of any kind.